And welcome to a brand new episode of Backpass with Ras, the Euros special. And today we are featuring a team that probably in the last decade or so has gained many followers, many supporters due to their style of play and their success on the pitch as well. I would argue there were certain fans, in fact, that were probably, predate this decade, that came from before this decade. But yeah, most of them I know have been fans from the past decade or so onwards. So the team in question is Spain, España, and the person to speak about Spain is none other than our resident Spanish football expert, Mr. Antonio Codinach, backed by popular demand as well on social media. Here he is. How are you doing, Antonio?
I'm doing well, Russ. Thank you for having me. You are very generous as always with your words. I've been wanting to be back a little bit earlier, but unfortunately, some work commitments. As I am a teacher these days, is difficult to find that extra time. Not only because of professional, but also I have two little chickens at home that take my time during the evening. So sometimes it's difficult to have that quietness that we need to have a proper conversation about our passion, right? Which is football.
All right. Yeah, I understand that as well. Yeah, so
Yeah,
let's get down.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm a 4-year-old. So my evenings I also tied down. This is actually a very good time for me
Oh,
to
that's very good.
yeah,
Good to hear.
because
Good to hear.
he's in school. So anyways, let's get down to business now. So we'll talk about the Euros that Spain played in the 90s to the noughties.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
we look forward to the upcoming Euros. And we'll start with Euro 92. Spain didn't qualify for that. But the
Yeah.
thing about this Euros is that those listening or watching in, you got to take note that in the qualifiers, only the top team qualified to the Euros. The space was only limited to 8 teams, so
You're
seven
right.
qualifiers plus the host.
Yeah.
But in Spain's case, for this Euros, for this qualifier, even if they had opened it up for the top two to qualify, they would have still not qualified. They finished third in that group. So what happened here in these qualifiers?
As always, you are very spot on with your data, which is something that we listeners and watchers of the show we really appreciate. Uh, Look, I'm going to be honest. I had to refresh a little bit when we talk about going back. Believe it or not, that's what 24, yeah, about like 30 plus years.
Yeah, 30.
Because I do remember what I remember from '92 is the Olympics, right? Barcelona hosted the Olympics in '92, and guess
Yeah,
what? Spain won
won.
the gold medal.
Yeah.
So the under 23 team seems to be a good team. And I remember some names like Luis Enrique and Guardiola and Kiko Narváez and Cañizares playing in that team. But the adult team with the Butragueños and that generation, which was pretty much reaching to an end after the World Cup in Italy, I think it was a very good reflection of something that not only has happened to Spain, and we will have time to talk about this when we go through the different Euros, but I've seen this also at club level, which is it takes always longer than expected to create a solid transition from a team to another one. And I do believe that by then, that generation of playing that I just briefly mentioned, was not at their best, at their peak. I think that generation peaked at the World Cup in '86 in Mexico. So the 92 Euro reached quite a little bit late. I was looking at numbers. We were third, you were correct, behind France and the Czech Republic. We only won 3 of the 7 games. We lost both of them with France. And as I say, right, for me, it was a little bit of like a leftovers of the Italy 1990 World Cup, and most probably that part of the decline of what it was a solid and good team in the World Cup '86 plus the '90.
Yeah. So then moving on 4 years after
Hmm.
in England now, Euro 96 in England. And you did quite well to get out of the group stage, went to the quarterfinals to meet the host. But believe it or not, you actually lost a penalty shootout to England. How's that? Okay, that
True.
quarterfinal. Okay, before I go on, that quarterfinal, I believe there are
Yes.
people who say that maybe Spain were a bit unlucky to lose that quarterfinal to England. They could have
I
knocked England
re
out.
I remember that game uh, very well, and I believe psychologically that sort of like new or starting to renew group of players. And I remember Fernando Hierro, ex Real Madrid, Guillermo Amor, FC Barcelona, Nadal, no Nadal
Mm.
the tennis player,
Big
but
Nadal,
Nadal the player
yeah.
from Barcelona and Mallorca were there. And I think mentally Spain was never prepared or were not prepared yet to go through what it has been always or always until 2010 our barrier, right, which was the quarterfinal. And I think it was too much pressure playing against the host. And to be honest, I don't have the statistics here, but in penalty shootouts we don't have a good record, and we lost 2-4 or 4-2, if I'm not wrong, in the
Yeah,
penalty
yeah.
shootout. But anyway, I think we left with a bit of a frustration because most probably we lost a good chance. And I'm very sure that if you asked those that generation of players, the ones I just mentioned, most probably they will tell you that that was most probably the biggest opportunity they lose in order to overcome the challenge of the quarterfinal, which, as I mentioned, Spain has always historically until 2010, and we will talk about that,
Mhm.
uh, being always stopped at the quarterfinals. Like we play good football, but we were never able to cross that barrier, and the 1996 Euro uh, was never an exception. And by the way, not that we did very good in the stage group, because we played 3 games and we draw 2 and we won only 1. So we left the competition with, if you want
One
me,
week,
like one
1 week.
win, 3 draws, and then of course the penalty shootout.
Okay. So overall, would you say that that Euros was certainly an improvement to 4 years before, but
Well, I
in
mean,
terms of
in order not to, I
expectations,
mean, yeah, true. And I mean, if we going back 4 years, and the 92 is a little bit of an exception, right? Because, um, as you mentioned, a very few teams were qualified. It was tough. The system was very strict. Only the first one. Here, I think they already changed the
top
qualification
two
rounds. We
qualifying.
were
Yeah.
able to go through, and. And it was starting to have a little bit of a change in generation of players. There were good hopes, as I say, in the 80s, early 90s, with the in Spanish we say the quinta of El Buitre, referring to Butragueño, and I'm talking about Butragueño, Martin Vázquez, Michel, and other Real Madrid players that pretty much were holding the Spanish flag, as always, with players from FC Barcelona. But yeah, once that set of players were not there in the national team, the new wave of the Hierro, Nadal, Amor, and so on. Uh, but to be honest, from the Spanish point of view, we never believed that we could do something big, and then that affects psychologically not only the players, but I believe also the supporters. Right? We knew, like, okay, quarterfinals England, we will go home, and we went home.
Okay. Now 4 years on, before we
Yes.
even go any further in that tournament in Holland and
Yes.
Belgium,
Yeah.
this crazy match that Spain played against Yugoslavia 4-3. What a game that was for the neutrals. It was a great game to watch, end to end.
I I love coming to the show because you force me to really deep dive into my memories. And something was telling me that there was a big game in that Euro 2000. And yes, indeed, that was that game where Mendieta scored a penalty in the 94 that gave us the points to go through. We are talking about still 2 points per victory. And by then, if I'm
Was
not
already
wrong,
three.
was it?
Was
No, it was
already
already
three.
three. Sorry, it was already
Yeah.
three. So without those 3 points, of course, we would not have gone through. But we won versus Slovenia, who they were at the bottom of the group. But
Yeah.
the initial game, as always, Spain never does, with a few exceptions that we will talk later on, most probably. Spain never does a very good starting game in these big competitions. And we lost with Norway, which later they did not even qualify. But
Yeah.
yes, as we always say, once you look at the journey on a big competition, you always need to have in mind that there's going to be a game where we're going to struggle. And then the earlier that game happens, and for us was Norway, the first one, the better. But yes, unfortunately, later on, we could not progress. But it was a good memory. I remember, if I'm not wrong, Alfonso.
Yes.
Remember
Alfonso
Alfonso from Real
Perez.
Madrid player, FC Barcelona, Getafe. I already mentioned Mendieta, which, by the way, one of my favorite Spanish players ever. And he scored not only the penalty, the 3-3, but also Alfonso scored in the extra time to give us a victory.
Yes.
So
One
it's
minute
pretty,
after, 5 minutes
yeah,
in
yeah.
injury time.
Very, very, very crazy. But well, hey, football it is. Later on, I think we're gonna be talking about what happened in the quarterfinals again.
Yeah. And the quarterfinals, you played one of the favorites to win the tournament, France, world champions at that time.
That
No contest.
generation that French generation was already booming. And personally, don't ask me why, that generation of players, with Barthez in goalie, with Zidane, but man, they had that left winger, Djorkaeff, which
Right.
was a nightmare. And I remember, don't ask me why. Again, the fact that I'm in the show, I had to went back and look at some memories, and then I went like, oh my goodness, he was an absolute. Yuri Djorkaeff was an
Yeah.
absolute nightmare, and we lost. And again, once again, don't forget this: quarterfinals, sent home. It's a story that kept repeating until our glory days. That I'm very sure we're gonna
Yeah.
talk very
Yeah.
soon.
And this is very important, especially because we talk about from the past, from the 92, right? All the way building up to the last one in the Northeast. We'll speak about that later, but it's
Yeah,
important to have this transition now. So now
super, super, very important.
2000, that's done. You got knocked out in the quarterfinals again.
Again,
Yeah. But Euro 2004. Now this was a would you say this was a big disappointment to get knocked out in the group stage itself?
yes, of course, 100%. And the main reason was because, if I'm not wrong, wasn't it the one that was played in Portugal?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, which means in our neighbors, we had, I remember, in each stadium, half of the stadium at least supporting our team, but we were right there at the edge of a transition. And if I'm not wrong, I'm going to say that, can't remember who was the manager of Spain by then, but we play awful. Like I think we just won like one game and draw another one, and
Yeah.
and we lost the third one. So we did not even go through the knockout stages. And I remember we were with Portugal, and finally champions, the surprising
Greece.
one, the Greece. And I believe that we were same amount of points, but they went over because of the goal difference. So look, disappointment is, I think, understatement, because of, as I said, the proximity, and because we thought, it was reaching the stage where that generation of players that I mentioned,
The
it was
manager was
okay.
Inaki Saez.
Yeah, Iñaki Sainz. I know, I remember. I was going to mention him, but anyway, who was the manager of the under 23. But anyway, Casillas was already in that in that team. Pujol was already in that team, but then we had other players that they were already at the last stage. And then when we
Torres
talk
was there.
about, yes, yeah, and
Raul was captain.
Raul, which was most probably the last big tournament he played, or one of the latest one.
Xavi was there.
Ivan Elguera as well, remember, from Real
Yes,
Madrid, and
yes.
Espanyol as well. But yes, that generation really did not perform. And then later on, and I guess we're going to talk now, is when I think mentally, thanks to Luis Aragonés, the manager, the new manager, we were able to click and mentally change the history of our football, to be honest.
Yeah, that group stage, let me just share as well. It's crazy
Yeah.
to think because right now when we think about Greece, we only think of
Nah,
1-0 wins, but they actually
nah.
scored 4 goals in that group stage. They scored four, they conceded four. Spain scored two, conceded two. In today's football, you wouldn't think that Spain would be capable of just scoring 2 goals. The way they
Yes,
play
but
nowadays and
but
all, but that was
but you
then,
will
right?
agree, yeah. But the psychological part, Russ, is so important, and we've never been in the lovely sport of football very strong in that sense, and because of that heavy backpack full of stones of history and quarterfinals and not being able through and so on. As soon as we saw a little bit of like a hint of an issue, the team pretty much blocked, and we never progressed. By then, believe it or not, and we're talking about 2004, Spain was ranked third in 2004 in June by FIFA rankings. And it's November, we were sixth in UEFA, but in FIFA, we were third. So we were technically, yeah, the third
Mm.
best national team in the world. And we go into a big competition and we don't perform, which is what has happened always in this kind of a big stage. And don't forget that the last time since 2004, I'm just looking at it right now. The last appearance of Greece in a Euro was 1980. The guys show up 24 years later and they win the competition. Nobody knows how. Well,
Yeah.
we know because I watch it, but it's amazing.
Yeah. And that on that point also that you made that Spain were ranked third in the world, I always
Hmm.
remember that Spain entered every competition, people would always rate Spain highly that okay, this time maybe Spain could be dark horses, they could do it because of all the players at Real Madrid, Barcelona, we've seen in the Champions League. Valencia was also coming up at that point. Then we also had Deportivo. So, we had all this knowledge of the Spanish players that are playing in all these teams, and everyone's expectation is always, okay, maybe Spain will do well, but then they always falter. So
No,
they
but
became a
have
team had big expectations, but always disappointed.
look, we need to call things by its name. And we've been historically, until 2010 or 2008, underachievers, right? We had the skills, we have the quality, we have the players, we fail in attitude. And normally, I will connect this to the fact that in every single team that you mentioned, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Deportivo, Atlético de Madrid, there has always been the superstar, with a few exceptions, has been always somebody non-Spanish. And I think what the Beckham law in terms of football in the European Union made is to put together good club teams, but it deteriorated national teams. Or at least that is the case that I see with Spain. And in addition to that, so in other words, who was in charge of carrying the Real Madrid flag and being there and being the playmaker? We already mentioned the Zidanes, all the Ronaldinhos, whatever that is, right? And then, but nobody from at the national level were able to have that strong winning mindset, and that's why we fail until something magic happened. A new manager comes in and drastically does a complete cleanup of the national team, remove those that they were there forever, and everything clicked. To be honest, and that's what happened. Moving on.
Yeah. And on that point also, I want to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Was there a divide in the Spanish team that, that you had your Catalans, and there's this thing that the Catalans want their own country, and then so
Yes,
the
but
Catalans, and then there's
no.
people from Real Madrid, and then there's that
So
rivalry.
historically, there has only been a few players, and I know one for sure, which is Oleguer. I don't know if you might remember. He used to play for Barcelona,
Barcelona,
and
yeah.
he's the only Oleguer Presas. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the only one that I remember that he say, "I don't want to play in the national team." Okay, but maybe there has been a little bit of like subtle conversation behind, but never. And I have to say that in most recent years, in the era where Pep Guardiola was managing Barcelona and Jose Mourinho was managing Real Madrid, there were clásicos where that was like a battle, like a ground battle. It was very, very tough. And it affected the national team. Ironically, it happened in the golden years of Spanish national football. And Xavi from Real Madrid, and sorry, Xavi from Barcelona, and Puyol from Barcelona admitted that they have to had conversations with like Iker Casillas as representative of Real Madrid and national team captain to pretty much lower down the atmosphere, because those years where Guardiola and Mourinho were managers of the teams, it was really complicated. It was really complicated because uh, yeah, because of the behavior issues, and it was tough for the national team to live together and to go to international competitions and perform. But as I say, right, there is a little bit of luck, some decisions, and then of course being able to put together a generation of players that, and this is my opinion, Spain will never have again.
Okay. And now the Holy Grail, you finally won it in 2008. Finally, Spain has won a major, not for the first time. I know you've won a Euro before in 64.
64.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so not for the first time, but the first time in a long time, in at least in our
Uh,
lifetime. Yeah,
Luis Aragonés is appointed manager of the national team. He has a very tough qualification round with the media against him, and Luis, go home. We don't want you. He makes the tough decision not to call Raúl, who was the number
star.
one Spanish player by then, and he decides to leave him at home and puts together a list of players that, in terms of quality, there was no doubt that they were outstanding, but then is able to convince them that forget about the past. This is an opportunity. We go into the 2008 Euro Cup, and then what for me is the penalty that changes the history of Spanish football, unfortunately, and against your favorite team, is that penalty that Fabregas scores and put Spain in the semifinals of Euros, and then I think the release psychologically and mentally takes into a different dimension, and then from there onwards we play what I believe the best football a national team has played that I have watched. And I did not watch uh,
Brazil.
Brazil of the 70s, but I watched the France and I watched Germany and so on. But in terms of quality of football and result, I'm I have no issues admitting that I think we play outstanding football, and then by winning Euro 2008, as I say, yeah, we went moving on into future competitions with a complete different mindset.
Yeah, going into that, you already mentioned that quarterfinal against Italy, the defending
Yes,
champions as well.
yes, yeah.
They were, I mean, admittedly, they were on a decline. They were aging,
True. They were
but
the Spain of a few
you
years
know,
ago. Yeah, correct.
yeah. And going into that quarterfinals, still, even though you were favorites to win that because
Hmm.
the Spain had played well, Italy somehow managed to get out of the group stage.
Yeah,
Uh, and then there they were in the quarterfinals playing against Spain.
yeah.
Uh, what was the Spanish expectation like going into that quarterfinals? Was there a lot of nerves or self-doubt that maybe again we're gonna get knocked out in the quarterfinals?
Well, I'm very sure there was part of us that were thinking about. I will share a personal story here because I do remember clearly what happened. I had the opportunity to be a pundit by then here in
Yeah,
Singapore, and I remember the host asking me what was going to happen, and I say, "Look, this is a game that can change the history of Spain, but if we go home, it won't be a surprise." So there was a bit of hope because we saw good things, and we did very well in the group stage because I remember we won the 3 games versus Russia, Sweden with Zlatan, and Greece,
hmm,
former champions in
yeah,
Euro 04, and but we still draw 0-0. So we were not able to score a goal versus Italy.
yeah. That's
And
another thing. You draw 0-0. It wasn't like you beat Italy over 90 minutes or extra time.
too much
And
respect,
you
Ras, too much respect. I
and
mean,
it, and it brought you to that
historically,
penalty shootout. Again penalty shootouts again.
yes, but as I say, what did I say 5 minutes ago? There was a generation of players, a manager that was able to change the mindset. And the third thing I mentioned is we were lucky enough. The penalty shootout, regardless what is your research, there is a component of, yes, goalies can prepare and so on and can observe. And we had a really good goalie in
Yeah,
Casillas, but you need to be lucky. I mean, you need that component there is no, I don't think there is any doubts about it. But for whatever reason, we were lucky that day. We went through, even though I remember I wanted to. I recall the whole family of Danny Huiza when he missed the fourth penalty, and then Camonaresi score, and that was gonna be like, oh no, here back again. But then Di Natale was not able to score, and then
yeah,
Fabregas put the 4-2. And look, it's all that components. But look, history is like this. It could have been Italy, sure, but you say Italy was on a decline. I
yeah.
think overall we deserve. But what I
Mm,
wanted to say is why 0-0 is because I mentioned the word respect. You could do a survey among your audience and ask them in a European environment of football, who do you fear the most at competition level? I can guarantee you 50% of the people will tell you Italy. The level of the grade of competition that Italy always puts there, or at least this is our impression in Spain, the Italians always compete. And you have it there, right? 0-0. And
yeah,
Italy didn't have a good a bad team, So hey,
yeah.
it went the
Even for
way it
that
went,
game,
and that's it.
they were missing Pirlo as well on suspension and Gattuso as
Yes,
well.
yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
yeah,
Of course. I mean, luck is also that, right? It's
yeah,
it's it's
I
it's part of all these things. All these things need
yeah,
to consider. But then
exactly.
if you look forward the competition, sorry to say, nothing against the Russians. We trashed them in the semifinal, and then in the final versus Germany, I think that was, I think we beat that mentally first, and then of course that Torres goal. Everybody talks about Iniesta goal in the World Cup in South Africa, but I recall Torres goal like first Fabregas penalty, Torres goal, and then of course Iniesta.
And
In the
then,
World
and
Cup.
also you mentioned 50% would say, be fearful of playing against Italy. The other 50% will be fearful of playing against Germany. And you played the Germans in the final.
Who is that? Who was, I can't remember if it was a journalist or Jorge Valdano, the former Argentina player and Real Madrid, who say who say that quote of football is a 11 versus 11 game where Germany always win, right?
Yeah.
So yes, there are some teams that historically have that. We were that team from 2008 all the way to 2012, only for 4 years. We enjoy it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But historically, you don't want Italy, you don't want Germany. I mean, most of us will prepare England or
Holland,
France.
maybe.
Yeah, or Holland. Well, Holland for sure. We knew in South Africa that we were going to win, but nobody was expecting that game the way it went. But anyway.
Okay. Now to sum up this era, what would you say? It's been a good progression because from where you started off at the start of the 90s to the end of the noughties, and you eventually win the tournament. I think it's been a good progression for Spanish football.
100%. If I'm not wrong, the first team to win back-to-back Euros, 2008 and 2012. And 2012, I believe, I don't think we will talk about it, but we absolutely destroy pretty much everybody, with the exception of Italy, if I'm not wrong, in the opening group. But I remember like the final was an absolute show, 4-0, and we play. I can't remember I've seen anybody play that level on a final at international level. Even though that unfortunately later on we went to Brazil for the World Cup and we got trash, because of what I say, that transition of big teams. But yes, overall, we had our golden years. Something that I never thought I could see. I've seen it, which is to become world champs and Euro champs. But one of the biggest challenges that I think Spanish football is facing these days, both at club level, and I'm going to point to Barcelona as they are now these days, and at national level, is that because our country is so rich in history, we always tend to look back. And for us, this is a big mistake. Barcelona will... Where did I read? Michel, Girona manager, the Girona who is third on the league and is going to play Champions League miraculously next year, told Xavi Hernandez, manager of FC Barcelona, the other day, he told him, for as much that they compare you with Pep Guardiola, you will always lose. And that is a fact. Regardless how much silverware Xavi wins with FC Barcelona, he will always lose in a comparison with Pep Guardiola. Spain, at a national level, we want to have the same generation of players from 2008 to 2012. And that is not going to happen again. Maybe this summer I will have to eat my words. I don't think so. But that is the big mistake. And it happens at FC Barcelona and it happens at the national level. But of course, overall, those years for us, was, were fantastic. In Spain, we used to say something in the line of, "Hello, I'm Spanish. What do you want me to beat you at?" Yeah. Some
Yeah,
of us got that tagline somewhere because we were like football, basketball. Rafa Nadal was killing everybody on tennis, and so on and so on. But we need to understand that this is life and comes and buys, and it's fine if you know we don't we oh, it's only one winner, right? Champions League,
yeah,
one winner. La Liga, one winner. Bundesliga, one winner. Premier, one winner. It's a very, very difficult to be always
the
there
top.
on top. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
Now
man.
going to looking forward now to the upcoming Euros. Before
Hmm.
I ask you about Spain's hopes in this tournament, we've already recorded 2 episodes. Two of my guests, one is Esat Sejdik. He's mentioned that he's in fact tipped Spain to win the tournament.
Ooh.
The other guy, Peter De Roo, who's the current head coach at Ballistic Khalsa, he
Hmm.
has tipped Spain to do well as well. Probably is a dark horse, but he has tipped Spain to do well. So I've got two guests who have tipped Spain to do well in this Euros. What do you think will happen, or rather, what's your expectations of Spain?
If uh, if this question is being answered by my brain, I'll be happy if we reach the last eight.
Mm,
With my hand in my heart, last four will be an outstanding result. It's a very young squad. We have a manager that knows all the players because he's been the manager at the younger, at the youth
youth level.
academy and,
Mm,
and, and so on. But I'm not sure, again, if we have the competitive edge.
mm,
And my hopes are not very high. I don't think for sure we will win the competition, but anything that will be from the last eight onwards, I think uh, we will be happy. Well, let's see when our bad game happens. You know what I mean? If
yeah,
it happens early and we have time to make up, fantastic. If it happens at the end of the group stage or whatever, or maybe in the knockouts, then of course you go home. I am extremely tired of the windshield style of playing, of passing the ball from side to side with very little intention. I would prefer to win 5-4 than 1-0 from a penalty of whatever. If you know what I mean. But
yeah. And you're
I
in a
don't know.
tough group as well. You've got Italy and Croatia. Not say both teams are doing very well or it's a good generation for either country, but still,
And
nevertheless, still a tough
and
opponents to play.
remind me how many go through?
Two,
Italy, Croatia. What is the fourth one?
Albania.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess it's gonna be three teams for two spots. Zero expectations. Let's see. I'm sure we will have another chance to talk, and maybe we have the chance to. I don't know. We might be able to watch a game like we used to do in the old days.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh?
that's a good one. Yeah, and
It's a good
also,
one.
what do you feel about any players to watch out from the Spanish team?
Look, unfortunately, Gabi is not going to be ready. He's still recovering. Gabi from FC Barcelona.
Okay,
Uh, the biggest hope
Pedri.
of Pedri, not at the best year. He has not been able to put, I don't know how many games in a row. I've heard this morning, believe it or not, that he might not be in the final list,
Okay.
surprisingly. I have heard that Isco from Betis, ex-Real Madrid players, has done an amazing season.
Hmm.
He has gotten I think like 19 MVPs this
Hmm.
year of the 30 plus games that he has played. The biggest hope relies on the youngster from Barcelona, Yamin Lamal, because at 16 years old, he's the guy that the most talented guys we have. I don't know if he's going to bring Pau Cubarsí from FC Barcelona as a center defender. We're going to have a couple of veterans with Carvajal. We expect the best version of Rodri from City. We're going to have Dani Olmo. We'll see. It's a mix of people that are good players, some really good players, but there is not a single superstar. And we cannot say that Yamin Lamal is a superstar because the guy is 16 years old. Like is a teenager. He's younger than my students here in the school. So we can younger than my eldest son. So we cannot put that much pressure. It's gonna be difficult. That for me will be maybe the names to watch for sure. Guarantee you, Yamin Lamal is the one to watch because as of now, the most talented player. So let's see. And have in mind that I have not mentioned anybody from Real Madrid because the only one. I mentioned Carvajal. I think Nacho is gonna go as well as a centre back. Most probably Coque from Atletico Madrid. I already mentioned Olmo. Rodri is we don't even have a good striker because Morata is not putting the numbers. Maybe Joselu from Real Madrid. He's gonna go for sure. Is he gonna start? Really? The striker of Spain is a guy that has played 6 games this year in Real Madrid, who is on loan to Real Madrid from Espanyol, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
He's gonna be our striker in the Euro. I don't know. A lot of uncertainties and let's see what happens.
Okay. Anyways, a correction. The top 2 qualify automatically. The third place team could qualify. So best, one of the best.
It's a bit of a joke. Right? If Albania goes through and we don't, we better turn off the TV, man.
All right. But who are you tipping to win this tournament?
You know who I want to win?
No.
No France. No.
Yeah.
England.
Okay.
Yes. I think maybe because I've been watching the Netflix documentary. It's coming home. I don't know what is the title. I only watched the initial part. And it's been also a good refresher. But I don't know. I think it's about time that England wins something. But Holland, nah. France, please no.
Yeah.
Us, we'll see. I don't know. There might be most probably an underdog, and we don't know. Let's see what the competition has to bring us.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that would do, man. Thanks a lot for sharing your stories and also your thoughts on the upcoming Euros. All the best to Spain.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Let's try to follow as much as possible, and let's chit chat about it.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
All right. So this is me,
Thank you so much.
signing out.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Ciao. Bye bye.